the past year or so because we've all seen the incredible growth in the industry and the impact that that can have on running a small business. So we have today Sean Collinsgru and Katherine Lippincott from Premier Outdoor Living. How about a big round of applause for them? And we'll have you grab a seat right here on the fancy chairs. And I'll take this plastic one. So, welcome guys. How are we doing?
Pretty good.
Pretty great.
Good.
Pretty good. Drove like 6 hours to be here, so.
Drove straight here from New Jersey.
Yeah.
From New Jersey.
So this is where you guys do business. It's mostly South Jersey.
Yes.
Just show of hands or claps or whatever. How many of you have followed them on Instagram or have heard of them before? All right.
Couple. Yeah, there you go.
Good.
Hey.
Perfect.
Make us feel good at least.
Okay, so why don't we start just real quickly with a little bit about the business. We don't need to get into a full story about it, but just what do you guys do?
So we specialize in full backyard remodels, kind of like the Showcase project, and started out just regular design build company about 6 years ago. And my only real advantage in the market, my local market, was that I was young. I was well acquainted with social media, so that was how I was marketing my business, and that kind of grew. I loved the just the creative part of making videos and all the stuff that comes along with that. So we kind of shifted the business, and now we're doing a lot more on the content side. Dove into YouTube and Instagram, TikTok. So now we have about 415,000 total followers. So we're still doing a lot of all the design build. That's where we're getting all of our content, but we're putting a little bit more emphasis on the content creation side of it now.
And Katherine, you've just joined the company. It's about a year, a little less than a year now?
A little less than a year, yeah.
So actually I want to ask Sean first. Sean, what is Katherine's role?
Official title?
Official title and what that means in the scope of your business.
Official title is Director of Global Expansion.
Okay.
And that is just a powerful catch-all term for whatever we need to do. So we are, she's handling a lot of the social media stuff. With trying to grow the social media presence and create more content, it requires a lot more strategy behind it. So now we have two minds thinking on that. She's also handling a lot of the initial inquiries, back and forth with clients, pitching in on site, laying pavers, kind of a little bit of everything. And that's what we all do. It's a small company, so we're all doing a little bit of everything.
Everyone's rolling up their sleeves.
Yeah.
So is that accurate, Katherine?
Yeah. It's definitely a catch-all role. I do a little bit of everything, and he comes up with ideas, and I figure out a way to make it happen.
And what was your background? Because you're not necessarily from the hardscape world initially.
Right. Before this, I was in commercial real estate. I worked for a developer, and before that, I did marketing elsewhere.
Okay.
And grew up building boats. And if you can build a boat, that's pretty hard.
Build anything.
You can lay pavers, you can build decks.
I would say that there's some attention to detail required in boat building that would be appreciated in hardscape.
If your patio fails, you just have an unsightly patio, maybe a tripping hazard. If your boat fails,
maybe an opportunity for a boat if it settles enough.
That's true.
So there's a stretch there, but so when did you realize that you needed to add this role in your company? Because a lot of people here are running small businesses, and as a small business owner, it's very tempting to continue wearing most of the hats as you're growing. You found the business, you wear every single hat, and then over time you hire people, but this is a pretty significant move where it's not hiring a foreman or hiring a laborer or hiring just an office admin. This is like an all-encompassing role. So how did you come to that conclusion you needed that?
It was really just out of pure necessity. I mean, I had a son, he's almost a year now, so when I started the business, I was working in the field all day, working basically all night, doing designs, doing just talking with clients, emails, creating the videos and all that kind of stuff. So I couldn't keep up with all of that, and we'd gotten to a point where I'd kind of taken it as far as I could take it alone, doing all of the office stuff, all of the, you know, client relationship stuff, and all of the content and video creation. So it was just a necessary thing that we had to add to take some stuff off my plate, plus take things to the next level. So that's kind of how it started, and now it's kind of just, with a small company, we're just figuring it out as we go. So her role has kind of evolved.
It's definitely evolved. Always changing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what? Give me an example of that. What's that mean?
Well, with the video creation, that's really like our #1 thing that we're trying to scale. We're not trying to do more projects. We're sticking around 8 to 10 projects a year. We want to always incorporate new ideas and cool designs and really push that side of it. But we're not trying to scale the volume of the business. So really video creation, that's kind of what she came on to spearhead the growth of that. And because of that, we decided, you know, it would be really good for you to be out on site half the time, installing stuff. It'll give her some more knowledge of behind the scenes of how everything goes together. She's picking it up really quickly, and it's just a good element for the video content to just have another character, and you know, so it's always changing.
Yeah.
It was originally a work from home position.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now
And
it's
that's
a
when
work
the van
from our
came
mobile command center
into play.
position.
Okay. So okay. So now, do you guys know about the van? How many of you know about the van? Okay. So why don't we talk about that? The initial hiring, which was supposed to be a work from home, then it turned into working out of a van.
Yeah.
So tell us about that a little bit.
So I was working from home, and I could only do so much because I wasn't there. And it is a new industry to me, so there were terms that I didn't know, or I was trying to learn other things, and I was just constantly on the phone with Sean, like all day. Sean, I need this. Sean, I need this. And then we just came up with the idea of, I need to be on site. Sean needs to be in the office more, editing videos or creating designs or doing whatever he needed to do. And he can't always do that when he's, you know, a deck is half built and he can't like find a place to sit down and work. So we just came up with the idea we need something here that we can both work out of, so we can spend half the day laying pavers and then go into our van and do whatever office work we need to do. So
be able to have the crew keep moving ahead once things are established.
So we outfitted a van, and now it's our office.
Yeah, mobile command center.
Mobile command center.
So, and was that a game changer for you guys? Because I'll tell you, like from our experience, like, you know, we build these jobs once a year, and we have that tool trailer that's parked outside. We also have the other trailer that you saw when we were doing the showcase project together in New Jersey, the job site crashers trailer, which was set up as, you know, I called it a mobile office, but your name is a lot cooler, so we'll go with that. It was a command center where we had a TV on the wall, we had a table, we had a little hotspot, we had air conditioning built in, so, you know, you're able to stop and think and analyze the other things that are happening that are not directly construction related.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's a good idea for other businesses, considering you guys do a lot of content and it's very important for your business?
It's hard to say. It's not going to be a good fit for every business for sure. If you're trying to scale your business, I mean, your goal should really be to be out of the field. You should have foremen that are running the job sites. To really have an efficient, scaled business, you shouldn't need to be there all the time. So. But if you're trying to stay smaller and either you're doing a lot of office stuff, you're trying to create more content, or, you know, you just want to be on site at least half the time with, you know, hands-on, then I think it's a great thing. And it's like, I tried to do it out of my truck for a while, and it's just, you know, you can't really get set up to do stuff efficiently, trying to, you know, use the armrest to put your computer on. So we have power in there, we have heat. Not air conditioning yet because we haven't, it's been cold out, so we'll have to address that pretty soon.
We'll get there.
But I think it can be a really good fit for a lot of different businesses, but larger companies that are really trying to scale and have specific roles. We're small, so everybody does a little bit of everything, so it's really great for us to be on site. But I think a lot of people could benefit from having a mobile command center. Yeah.
Is it something that you find, I'm just trying to make it like relatable for everyone, but like, has it improved communication on site or communication with your clients because you have that place to stop and think and just, you know,
Absolutely.
communicate?
Yeah, and there's so many little, our thing is really on the little design details, and all of that stuff starts in my head. I'm continually trying to get better at getting that out of my head onto a set of plans, but there's always some little bit of a detail that either goes unnoticed or is just not talked about yet. So constantly there's questions like, okay, we're doing, how do you want to do this little corner? This isn't something that's on the plans. This isn't something we talked about. So I can just hop out of the van. I'm right there, address it, figure out what we want to do, go back to the van, and just for, I mean, even if we weren't doing the video stuff, designing takes so much time. Mm-hmm. The bigger the jobs get for us, the more of a time commit it is with each client. I mean, we're going over, you know, maybe 30 different materials that we need to use on a whole job site. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really time consuming. So having that space at the job site, and then if you have somebody that's an office person, having them on site's awesome too, because one of my weaknesses is not being able to get what's in my head communicated efficiently to everybody. So she was calling me all the time because, you know, she needs to kind of be there to be like, all right, Sean, this is the thing we need to do today. What's your decision? And it's just been great to be there together, and we can kind of all put our heads together. Mm-hmm. On site, in the office, and take care of everything.
So, Katherine, like, what's that experience for you like? Because I'm trying to imagine if I'm running a small business like you guys are, and exactly what you just said is the reality where like everything is living in my head, and I need to get it out to someone who can execute on that. Mm-hmm. What tricks have you guys developed that have made it easier for you to understand? Because anybody sitting here who's thinking about doing the same thing, that's probably good advice for them to hear.
It's definitely a work in progress, and we work in very close proximity with each other inside of this van, so it's definitely a lot of open communication, and it's just a lot of note-taking and just wrangling like thoughts. And we try to have meetings pretty regularly where we like sit down and brainstorm. So whether it's like first thing in the morning we talk, or you know, if he's out doing something else, at lunchtime we'll sit and we'll chat and just be like, okay, these are the objectives for this week, we need to get this done. Just a lot of communication. So, like, we even talked, and you and I were talking after the showcase that you were at in Freehold, and one of the things that you had said that stood out for you was the importance of those meetings and the consistency of those meetings. We talked about it earlier today, you know, having the toolbox meetings and having checkpoints at like 10 a.m. and noon and 2 p.m. to make sure everything's on track. You guys do something similar over the course of a week where we know what we want to accomplish this week, and basically on a regular schedule, you're able to check in and see how things are progressing on that front. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super important because there's so many things to do. Like, everybody kind of knows what else needs to be done on the job site, but to just have that time and sit and talk and say, okay, this is what we're going to do first, this is what we're going to do next, and break it down to more manageable like tasks, hour by hour, or first half of the day we're going to do this, second half of the day we're going to do that. Everybody gets on the same page, and with us, it's when we're both out of the van and we're on the job working, it's 6 of us on site. So the more planning that we can do to break off into teams, 2 people tackle this, 2 people tackle this, the more efficient that we're going to be. And really, I don't think you can ever have too much planning. Like, I could realistically spend 8 hours a day in the van planning. Like, that's never going to be wasted time, because most of the inefficiencies, in the end, like the major ones, come back to me for not planning something out. A material's not there when it's supposed to be, or an inspection wasn't scheduled. That's by far the biggest loss of efficiency, is in planning. And we've gotten way better at it, but that is still something that more than just the speed of one individual employee or anything. It's materials not being there on the day that we need it, or we can't do this next part because this needs to be open for the inspection, and not planning that stuff. So the more time that I can spend planning, the better. And it's definitely one of my weaknesses, so it's always something I'm trying to work on.
And that's one of your strengths.
Yes. Yeah.
The short answer is yes.
We try to balance each other. Yeah.
That's good. You brought up a good point. So like one of the, a lot of you, well, I don't know if it was you guys specifically, but part of the whole process with the emails that people were getting after signing up for the show was we would ask you guys to submit questions on things that you want answers on. And one of those questions, and the most popular question, was basically about how do you stay ahead of the material delays? Because they are a reality, and they will continue to be a reality. And your projects are so creative. There's so many different things coming in and out that it's not even possible to say like you're relying on a heavy inventory from a dealer, because a dealer will not stock the entire lineup of Techo Block products. But you touch almost every single product we make over the span of a year. So what process or what recommendations or tips would you have for contractors in a similar position where they're trying to branch out, they're trying to do more creative designs, but they're worried that, well, I can't afford to wait 3 weeks to get that, I don't know, that Squadra Onyx Black to do the banding on the job. I have to wrap this job up. I have to move on to another one.
The biggest thing comes down to planning. I think most of the contractors that are here, they're not selling a job today and doing it in 3 weeks. They're probably booked out 6, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. We're booked out for the whole entire year already. So if we have an issue getting material this year, or waiting on a product, that's my fault at the end. We're sold out for the whole year. We should be able to get our orders in. So at the end of the day, if I wait too long to put in an order for something that's not a stock item, that's my fault. And I mean, as the owner, everything comes back on me, and everything's my fault. But it's definitely something that
That's the self-inflicted.
I have a few strengths that I'm really good at, but I have like a lot of weaknesses that I'm really, really bad at. So hiring somebody like Katherine.
Don't be so hard on yourself. That sounded brutal.
I'm just brutally honest with myself. I'm very disorganized, but I think that spurs some of my creativity. So it comes down to planning. You can get your orders in. Most people aren't. The demand in the industry is crazy right now for contractors. Even not established ones. Like if you have a business, you've done hardscaping before, like you should have no problem filling up your schedule. So make sure that you look ahead in your schedule and say, this job's starting in a month. I need to make sure that I have this stuff ordered now, instead of waiting. I think a lot of people fell into, a habit, and my dealer's awesome with quick turnaround. So he kind of like enabled me to wait till the last minute because he's just awesome. But you shouldn't get into that habit of, relying on every industry, construction related. There's backups, there's material shortages. So you just have to plan ahead. So
what exactly do you do? Like from the moment that you meet with a client, you've presented the design, you sell the job, like we agree we're doing the job. What are the steps that Premier Outdoor follows to make sure that the client's expectations are aligned with the market reality, that your deliveries are going to show up on time, that you can plan out your scope of work? Because if you're booked out for a year, there's a tremendous amount of planning involved in that, not just saying like the job is happening there. You have to make sure you have the right equipment, the right permits, the right subcontractors, the right materials, all that stuff, and you have to manage the client's expectations all along, because if you're saying you're starting in August, you need to start in August in their head.
That's been one thing, timeline. We're trying not to give exact months anymore. We told everybody that's after our first couple jobs, it's gonna be sometime before the end of the year. You'll probably be somewhere early fall, but it'll be done before the end of the year. If you have anything planned this year that you want this done for, don't or hire somebody else, because we can't, it's just too unpredictable. People add stuff to the projects, but to stay on track and make sure you stay organized, hire somebody like Katherine to keep someone like me on track, because I'm so like bogged down on the job site that we're doing, finalizing like little details of the design, it's hard for me to really like look ahead and say, all right, this job starts in 4 months, but we need to make sure that we sent the plans over to the architect to get our plans stamped, submit that permit. Oh, we need a zoning variance. That's going to take 3 months. So you really need to be thinking way ahead of time. Not one of my strengths. So Katherine makes sure that.
So what happens from the time that the contract gets signed? There's a deposit that's collected, I guess?
Yes.
Not everyone collects deposits. Just show of hands, how many of you are collecting deposits at signature? Okay, good. Good practice, I would recommend.
Yeah.
So what do you do from there? Are you placing orders right away?
No, so we signed the contract. By that point, they've already paid for the design fee.
Okay.
And then once we sign the proposal, everything's finalized. We do a 10% deposit to secure their spot on the schedule. Once we have that, first thing that we usually do is, sometimes there's little design details that need to be finalized, colors or something, but we'll try to get all the plans over to our architect so that they can start working on plans. Permit is the first thing that we usually want to make sure is done and settled, because we need to make sure that it goes through the zoning department to make sure we don't need to make any changes to the design.
Before you order them? Oh,
exactly.
Okay,
so there's plenty of times where we do a design, we submit it to the township, zoning says, no, you're 5% over your impermeable coverage. We need to modify the design or decide if we want to go for a variance. So we want to make sure that it gets approved first, and then we'll kind of, it depends on the material. We kind of have a better sense of what kind of stuff is in stock for the most part, and anything special order or something that's not a common item, we'll make sure that we're at least talking to the supplier and say, what's your lead time on this? And Tim, our Teco dealer, he's great, and he's got enough space at his yard we can order as early as we want, and he'll store it for us. So I know not every dealer is probably like that, but we can get it in pretty early, and he'll kind of let us know, all right, this item here, no problem, we're gonna be stocking that, or the depot has it. If it's something that doesn't come in as much, we'll say, you know what, let's just order it now. It'll be here. I got the space to hold it. So
I think that's critical, is having that strong relationship with your suppliers.
Yeah.
Whether they're the manufacturers or resellers or both.
Yeah.
Having that direct line of communication and building a strong enough partnership where you can have that conversation, where they're not, you're not the guy who's calling once in a while. They're like, hey, do you maybe have this? Like, have a strong enough relationship where you're supporting one another, and then that opens the door to those conversations where Tim can say, like, okay, that's for July.
Yeah.
I'm going to get on the production schedule now. We'll bring it in, we'll hold it for you, and we'll ship it for you July, late July, August.
Yeah.
You tell me, but we're good.
Yeah.
From a design perspective, I alluded to the fact that you mix and match a lot of different things.
Yeah.
You've already said you're creative and not very organized and whatever. I don't want to. Your words, not mine.
My words.
But one of the things that you do very well is, from the design perspective, you do have this ability to limit how much waste you have with the products. You use the no-cut patio in quotation marks a few times. That design of bringing together materials, designing it within the dimensions of the materials to limit the cuts, the waste, and all that. What is that process for you, especially that you use so many different products, and every home and every project that you do is unique? So that there's, like, I'm trying to wrap my head around. There's a lot of work involved. So what's that look like? What do I need to do to be able to do that, I guess is the question.
That's a tough one. It starts out with more of a overall concept. I'll kind of have a picture in my head of what I'm envisioning for this style. Like the one that we just did, it was blue 60 3-piece that fragmented off into 6x13s. And then some of the shale gray kind of continued into the 6x13 Champlain gray. And what I did basically, they're a modular product, so I know that it's going to fit in at that seam, and we can just do it randomly where it tapers off into the 6x13s. So knowing the product, first of all, knowing that they're going to work together and we're not going to need cuts. And then I always like to draw it out on graph paper, and I'll draw it to scale. So with the blue series, I'll just do, you know, on regular graph paper, like the large rectangle will be 2 by 3 squares, and then I know each square is 6.5 inches, so I can figure out exact dimensions for a patio, and then I can draw it out. And something like if we're going to do a band of squadra, I can sit there and just count, all right, we're going to need 67 pieces of squadra, because if we're using, I don't want to over order on every paver if we're using 5 different pavers.
Well, it's a lot of pallets to manage on site.
And since we're a small company, we don't have huge machinery, so we need to try to be super efficient. If we have, you know, an extra 2 pallets of pavers, we don't have a machine strong enough, you know, we don't have a full-size skid steer, we have a dingo. It's going to take a whole day just to move them somewhere. And then I don't know where we're going to take them because we don't have a huge shop or anything, so it's a big problem.
But I think you're highlighting a couple of things. Like a lot of businesses and a lot of business owners look at like a company like you guys, and they see what you're posting online and types of jobs that you're doing, and there's this assumption, because they're high-end jobs, because they're big value jobs, that, well, this is a big outfit. They have a shop, and they have a yard, and they have a full office, and they have all this equipment coming in. That's not the case. It really comes down to taking the time to think about how can I get the most with what I'm using, and then you can do a lot with it. Like, I mean, we have lots of great equipment and tools out here at the Hardscaper Summit, but you don't need to buy everything to make a significant step forward in growing your business this year.
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned it in the presentation about renting equipment. Like, unless you're a massive outfit and you can afford, you know, 1 skid steer, 1 Mini X at this size, 1 at this size, it makes sense to just rent the equipment. There's going to be a different piece of equipment that's best for every different scenario. So unless you have or you want to scale to a huge size where you can accommodate the overhead for 20 machines, you have access to any machine that you want that's going to be perfect for that job. And my thing has always been keep our overhead super low. So our job trailer just goes from one job, goes straight to the next job, never comes home. We don't have a shop, we don't have a yard. We just kind of base everything around what we have, and it keeps us super flexible, so we can change with any opportunities that we see come up in the industry. We're not bogged down with a ton of debt, a ton of overhead on machinery or a yard. We can be flexible and kind of change the course of our business, which has been super helpful throughout all the stuff with the pandemic and everything. It's taken a lot of pressure off of us for material shortages. You know, we're not pressed for it because we don't have this huge overhead. We've built the business around being manageable and being efficient. And
I'm curious, like from your perspective, Katherine, because you came, well, commercial real estate, there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of structure to everything that you're doing.
Yes.
You came from marketing with a fairly large company as well, so there's a structure, it's a lot more rigid. Going to a smaller business that is as lean and flexible as Sean is saying, all the benefits in his eyes, what does that look like on your side? What adaptations did you have to make, or what are key takeaways that you saw right away? Like, hey, these are quick wins for us if we can just put a little bit of structure here and a process here, and we do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a balance because I was so in the red tape. Like for my brain, I was like, this process has a start, 4 steps, and an end, and then that was it. But with Sean, everything was just in his head. Everything was all in the air, and like the permitting process, and like there are still ways to make a process, like a permitting process for the most part is always going to be the same, or if we're dealing with the township on variances, we can improve that way. But on the back end, when it comes to design or just the day-to-day being out in the field, like it very much encourages me to just get the job done. Like, go do, you want to lay some pavers, go do it.
But did you see in that time, like there are things that, like permitting, obviously that's a pretty straightforward process, but were there other things in the business that you saw as like, and maybe these are common mistakes like throughout the industry, that like if we just did this and then this, we would save so much time?
She's probably thinking, where do I even start with
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is definitely like ordering materials and being on top of that kind of stuff, or just anything on the back end. If you plan out things from the beginning, it makes the actually doing the job so much easier. So like between ordering materials, hiring subs, all that kind of stuff, if you just plan in the beginning, get a process that works for you, whether it's hiring a Katherine at your job who does it for you, or just getting better at being organized. Just making a process and sticking to it on the front end.
I think a lot of, especially smaller contractors like me, I'm trying to get better at it, but you feel so busy with what you have going on right now that you're like, I can't devote that extra 3 hours to plan out this project that we're not going to do for another 2 months.
Yeah.
But then that job's going to come in 2 months, and you're not going to be fully prepared for it.
And you regret not taking the 3 hours.
Yeah, but then you're so busy on that job because you didn't prepare enough for that one, that the job 2 months. So it's like this cycle that you just need to put the emphasis on. The more that I can plan now ahead of time, it's always going to pay off. Like, you can always plan out the efficiencies, and a lot of times, by the time you get to the job, if it hasn't been planned out a month in advance with scheduling subs, making sure that your permits are approved in time, scheduling deliveries, dumpsters, all of that stuff, you can't make that up once you get there. If you're there and you haven't done any of that stuff, too late. You're going to have, the first couple days, it's like, all right, I got to get a dumpster, I guess. Let me call them, try to give them a sob story that I need it today, please send it out. And we've had to, throughout this whole thing, just put more emphasis on planning ahead, because we used to have subs and dealers that were just more flexible, more open. Now it's no matter what we're trying to get. Dumpsters, we used to be able to get them same day, no problem, every single time. Now it's at least 1 day, a lot of times 2 days out. Every company is the same way. So it just really put an emphasis on plan ahead of time as much as we can. And as much as I'm saying that, there's so much I need to work on with that, for sure. But Katherine is helping to keep me on track with that, which already has been just a game changer.
So basically, the takeaways here are, I put in 3 bullets. Stop to plan.
Yes.
Take the time to stop and make a plan. Stop to communicate that plan, like you're saying, with the meetings with the crew or the meetings amongst yourselves. This is the plan, where we stand versus that plan. And you do those things and you'll start growing your business. Yeah. Came up with that on the spot. Pretty proud of myself.
Can you print that out and send that to me? I need that. Yeah. I need to put that right in front of my desk. I always need a reminder of that.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we take some questions from the audience here?
I think that's pretty much it. I mean, if anybody's got any questions about the content side or marketing, I guess that's probably, we've kind of gone over a lot of my weaknesses. Those are at least some of my strengths are the big picture vision, definitely the design stuff, but all the business organizing questions should really have just been directed at Katherine from the beginning.
Well, we're going to be doing this again tomorrow, so we're going to be able to dive into some other stuff too. So why don't we take some questions? Anybody have any questions? So I'll just repeat the question so everybody heard. So she said, well, your designs are amazing. Where do you start? Because there's so many things happening on the projects that it's easy to maybe get lost around in there. So where do you start? What does that design process look like so that you can bring that to fruition?
Yeah. I always start out as simple as possible. So obviously we have a wish list from the client. I always start on graph paper, draw the dimensions of the house, anything like a fence if it's a small lot, draw in those parameters, and then start designing each piece, just the shape of it. So my biggest thing, I think the most important thing as far as design, it's cool to do these different patterns and all this crazy stuff, but the most important thing to design is just those simple shapes, like how the deck transitions to a patio and how much space is around the fire pit before you hit a sitting wall, and how the flow of traffic, how everything relates to each other, I think is the most important thing. So we try to get the bones of it in there. And I like doing it on graph paper because I can just erase it. And really, if it looks proportional and good, and it just feels like everything's balanced on a 2D simple sketch, I find that once I draw it up in 3D, it works out really well. And those simple proportions are the most important thing to a design, in my opinion. And then once you have that, you have the layout. This is where the patio is going to go. Then you can step back and look at the design a little more and say, all right, can we do something kind of crazy and wild with an X inlay through the center or a checkerboard pattern? Or is that going to be too busy? And also trying to find that balance of, are we doing this crazy design just to do this crazy design? Or is it making the design as a whole better? So that's something I always try to look at. Like, I've come up with a lot of ideas that we're just about doing. I'm like, I think this is actually taking away from the project. It's a cool thing to just do it, but in the end, I don't think it's beneficial to the overall design here. I think sometimes you need to go a little bit more simple. So that's always where I would start, is just with the general shapes.
The space.
And make sure that those shapes play off of each other really well and the proportions work. That's also going to help you get better at just knowing how big certain things need to be. How close can I get this sitting area to the deck without it being a traffic jam? And it's just an ongoing process. I mean, I've gotten so much better over the past couple years, and I still look at it like I'm just getting started, and I'm always looking at other people's work for inspiration or ideas. And I think as long as you have that mentality that you're willing to try things out, you're always looking for ways to improve on your designs, then they're always going to get better. And 5 years from now, you're going to be like, wow, those patios let's do 5 years ago were horrible. And that's kind of the goal. That's how I look at our old projects. I'm like, there's so many things I would have done differently. So as long as you have that mindset, I think your designs are going to get better. And I would focus on really just the bones of the design and the layout, and then you can do easy things like the no-cut patios. If you use Blue 60 with Squadra, Valet, 6x13, Blue Grande, they all work together.
Yeah.
You can kind of do anything, and you're not going to have a whole lot of cuts. So you plan that out a little bit in the beginning, and it's not necessarily going to take you that much longer, but you're going to have this cool impact piece.
Mm-hmm. That answer your question? Or do you have a follow-up question? Good? Yeah? Sure. Yeah.
Okay, what software are you using for design, and then also, are you using a software for project management, job costing?
So for design, I'm using Realtime Landscape Architect. I know, like 5 years ago for me when I got that, I was like, this is the most amazing software in the world. Oh my God, I can't believe this. Now you look at people doing SketchUp and Lumion, and you can't tell whether it's a picture or not. I really like Realtime Landscape Architect because it gives people a good enough idea of what their space is going to look like. It shows everything to scale. It looks great. But some of these renderings are so good, like you can't possibly ever live up to it. So I like that our finished product looks better than the rendering. With some of these Lumion sketches, it's like, you're never going to be able to build something that's going to look as good as that picture.
Well, I find one of the mistakes that gets made with those renderings is the plant selection when you're doing like a 3D render. The plant selection is not the baby plant that you buy at the nursery.
It's like 30 years.
Yeah. It's the mature plant. So like, it'll look like it's in a few years, but not when we leave here, because the gardens will be pretty bare. So that's something that
and one thing I always try to do is, with the design, is always leave out like a couple little details that I'm pretty sure we're going to do, I think are going to be cool, but so I'm already kind of like costing that out in my head and rolling that into the price. Maybe it's a little inlay detail, or it's something a little bit with the pavers that we're going to jazz up with, an accent band that cuts through it. But I always try to like put those into the job almost as a surprise for the client. Like say, all right, now we're to this point. I think it would be really cool if we did this whatever it is, an inlay that cuts through the patio, and then it's gonna continue onto the deck. And then they think they're getting this really cool design upgrade. I don't charge them extra for it, but I kind of already planned on doing it the whole time. So I always try to add in little surprises like that, and especially with plants, make sure that you're not putting in like, you know, huge mature trees that it's not gonna look like that for 30 years. So I always try to add even more plants than were in the rendering, so it looks more full, and just everything looks a little bit better than it does on the rendering. As far as the job software, like CRM, we don't. From the previous conversation we were just having, we could probably definitely use one. It's something that we should definitely look into. We're looking into Synced Up. They're here. Wes started talking to me about that, I think over 2 years ago when they were just getting it started.
Just getting started, yeah.
It's cool to see in 2 years.
They've grown a ton.
A ton.
They do a good job.
Yeah. So it's something that we should look into. I definitely not the one to ask for the best advice on that for sure.
I think that the most important thing there both from a CRM and from a job costing management position is it allows you to play back the tape and see what you did. What is the pattern in landing the right customer versus what is the pattern that lands the wrong customer? And then what is the pattern in terms of the execution of your jobs that help you become more profitable, because you see where your costs are and you see where you're overestimating or underestimating. So making the investments in that software, and you don't need to spend money on a software to be able to do it. You can download the free spreadsheet on hardscaper.com, or you can go to the Synced Up website. You can talk to him right there. You can build your own spreadsheet, but taking the time to work the numbers is the biggest difference. I have seen, even just in the projects that we've been exposed to annually with Showcase, sometimes there can be a difference of 10, 15 points of net profit at the end just because of things that get overlooked that are not part of the planning process or not part of that analysis after the project is done. And that comes back to that stopping to plan and communicate. Like it's before, during, and after all elements of the business. That's how you can grow and get better. You had a question?
In simple terms, when you go out to see a customer and they don't have the vision that you do, right? They have an idea. My husband and I want to have a patio.
Yeah.
And Sean's ideas are just way beyond just a simple patio. What does that look like from a upsell or just a conversation with the customer? And then give us just a success, like from a numbers standpoint. Somebody was going to spend X amount of dollars, and not because they didn't need it, because you got them inspired and enthused about this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to repeat the question so that everyone further back in here. So the question is, you know, a lot of times, and this is true for you, but this is true for pretty much everyone here, the homeowner doesn't necessarily have the same vision that the designer has, that the professional has. So how do you communicate that vision? How do you get the customer to buy in? And what does that look like, especially when it comes time to talk about the budgetary perspective, where they think they're going to build it for, I don't know, 20 grand, 30 grand, and really it's a $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 project. How do you get them there, and maybe give an example of that?
Yeah, so this is actually something we just talked about on our podcast, the Hardworking Happy Hour, pre-qualifying clients, and we're luckily in a position now where our leads far, far outweigh the amount of projects we can actually do. So we don't have to necessarily nurture those leads as much, and we're not worried about losing some of those leads where a larger company might be that's doing more volume. We just look at that as, hey, maybe this client's gonna eventually spend that, but we don't really have the time to walk them along. So what we do is they fill out a contact form. We have pricing on our website, so we have a $30,000 minimum. It says most of our projects are between 50 and 100, I think it says, and custom projects, larger custom projects can be more. So I find that just putting a minimum on there doesn't have to be 30,000. I started out putting 15,000 on there, but just getting them out, like most of our complete tire kicker leads, when we got to budget, after going and talking with them for an hour, they're like, oh yeah, and we want to keep it under $5 grand. I'm like, you're talking like 100 grand here. You're talking about a roof. You're talking, you want to get a pool in. Like, people are crazy. So if you can get them out of, usually somebody that's willing to spend 30 they might be willing to spend 50, 75, or even 100, but I felt like that was a good number to eliminate all the people that definitely aren't going to be our client, but not scare away too many people that might end up being a perfect client for us. So they fill out that contact form, they've already gotten the information that of generally what the projects cost, then we'll set up a consultation call, and if they have a really concrete vision and like, okay, we want a 12 by 16 patio and we want the sitting wall here, that's like the biggest red flag for me. I want nothing to do with them. I want somebody that comes to us for the vision, gives us their wish list, and I think the way that we market, that's kind of the leads that we attract. But basically, I've gotten pretty good at asking the right questions to get to the root of what they're looking for. So just asking them about how do you envision using it, you know? Do you think that you'll have a big emphasis on outdoor dining? Or would you rather have more of the space dedicated to like a lounge setup where you can just relax? A lot of people think dining table right off the bat. They're like, yeah, of course I'll have a dining table. And I say, you know, unless you're really doing like a set dinner time where everybody's sitting down together, that dining table is gonna be the last place people choose to sit. So if you're not planning on doing dinner time outside a lot with the family, we can still do a table, but maybe we'll prioritize that a little bit less. And if we're doing a roof structure over top of something, or we're doing a pergola, we want to maximize what's the most, you know, what are they going to use the most out there? Because they're going to want to sit underneath the shade structure, so that's what we're going to prioritize. So we'll ask questions like that, how many people they typically have over, like 90% of the time, what does it look like on a random weeknight or a Friday night? And then do you have like a once a year party that has maybe 70 or 100 people that you need to accommodate? And we'll try to come up with a design that feels nice and intimate and cozy when it's just the family of 5, very functional for the 10 to 15 they might have on a Friday night a couple times a month, but then also make sure that it flows. If every Labor Day they have 100 people over, we want to make sure that everything flows out into the yard so we don't have these big traffic jam areas like small steps. So it's just a series of those questions, like getting to the root of what they really want. They don't know how to put it all together. That's my job. But I've gotten a lot better at asking the right questions to pull out what is it that they really need, what are they looking for, and then obviously after we go over all of those things and I throw out some ideas, I say, all right, you're looking at probably 75 to 100 grand. That's right there, the make or break moment. They either say, oh my God, I thought it was going to be 30. I thought we were going to be right at your minimum. And I'm like, well, unfortunately not. And if it's that far off, I won't try too hard to you know, push them into getting a design or anything. I'll say, hey, why don't you call a couple other contractors, see what you can get with that 30. And if you want this really big thing and all the things in it, give me a call back. And then if they do come back, they'll be more educated. They'll feel like they're willingly hiring us and they'll be excited to do so instead of feeling like, oh my God, I feel like you pressured me to triple my budget. So it's another thing that I'm always looking to improve upon, how to pre-qualify the clients, how to walk them through the process and make sure that we're getting the best clients for us, because we want to find those 10 clients that are perfect for us. I don't want a nitpicky client. Like, I hate that. I change my mind on what we're going to do, like, during the project so many times. I'll come up with an idea. I hate when homeowners have any input whatsoever. I'm like, and most of them are just like, do whatever you want. And when they do that, they get more out of me. We end up doing stuff.
Well, you're more excited about it, and you're more invested in the success of the project, too.
That's what we're trying to do with every bit of pre-qualifying. Figure out how we find that exact client that we want to work for.
There's so much to unpack just from that answer. The main thing being, or things, you've identified the right versus the wrong customers for your business.
Yeah.
So you clearly know who you want to do business with and who you don't. And your marketing is designed to attract the people that you do want and reject the people that you don't.
Yes.
And then your pre-qualifying process reinforces that. So by the time they get through these layers, either they're completely oblivious to everything around them or they're the right customer.
Yep.
So I think that's like the biggest takeaway. It's not trying to upsell the customer, take them from here and get them there. Just get them excited to be here already. And that's one of the big things and why content is so important to your business, and the marketing side is so important, because you only want to do 10 jobs or so a year. So you just said it. You need to be able to be super selective. So you need good marketing to pull in more people than you can do business with, so you can pick and choose who you want to do business with.
And I bet 99% of your clients, you have a friend for life. Pretty much.
I mean, we have a great relationship with our clients, but usually when I don't need to be friends with the client, you know. Like if I bump into them in the store, it'll be very happy on both sides to see each other. Usually we do one project for them unless they buy a new house, because we do a very specific thing. But I get where you're going with it. You know, we want to make sure that they're comfortable with hiring us from the beginning. You know, a lot of people have told me I do the soft sell really well. I try to almost talk them out of it. You know, I'm not hard sell at all. And apparently that's more effective, and it seems to work for us. But we want to make sure they're comfortable with it in the beginning, middle, and end, because if you upsold somebody more than they were really comfortable spending, you could do the best job in the world, but they're still going to have that little bit of a feeling like, I shouldn't have spent this much on this patio. And there's going to be that little bit that's like holding them back from fully enjoying it. So I find that to be really important. So that's kind of how we do it.
Okay. We're going to take one last question. Yeah.
What's that? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Oh, marketing? No.
For
other
other
businesses?
businesses?
No. So it's a full-time job for both of us to do the video content that we're doing. We do have a lot of stuff, I guess, really on our podcast where we talk about it most, like just conversations like this about how we, incorporated stuff into our business, different strategies that have worked for us, and like I said, those are the few things that I think I'm pretty good at. The vision, the marketing, execution is where I lean on Katherine more, but yeah, unfortunately we don't. Maybe we should.
Add it to the list.
Add it to the list, yeah. Put it on the vision board.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us here today.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Another episode of the Hardscape Growth Show. So this episode will be streaming on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and on the hardscaper.com website in a couple of weeks. We're going to edit this up.
Recording this?
What's that?
This is recorded?
This is all recorded.
Beautiful. That's amazing.
So you guys can check it out. You can listen to it. And we have over 35 other episodes that you can check out as well. So thank you, Katherine. Thank you, Sean, for joining us. Thank you, all of you, for hanging out with us this afternoon. And until next time, work hard and pave harder. Thank you.